It really is a privilege and an honor for me now to introduce our executive director, who's been with Kristi House for so long and who has really dedicated so much of her life to helping child victims of sexual abuse and of sexual trafficking. So it really is an honor for me now to introduce our executive director, my friend, Trudy Novicki. Thank you, Trudy.
My name is Trudy Novicki. I've been the executive director here for 10 years now, actually. And the state attorney told us so beautifully and passionately how we got where we are today. It's my tough job to tell you where we're going. And as I was thinking about that, I was at a conference in New York earlier this week for World Childhood, one of our funders. And I had the pleasure of hearing a speaker, a Harvard-educated law professor who was also a child rights scholar. And she was talking about the history of child rights in the United States. And something she said just stuck in my mind, and I kept thinking about this over and over. She said, since the Cold War ended, in the United States, children are seen as a budgetary cost. I want you to think of that. Children's issues are seen as a budgetary cost. Children are no longer viewed in this country as a national resource. That's very different than from the beginning of the century until the 1960s. And I'd ask you to keep thinking about that as I tell you where we're going, because Kristi House has never had the theory of we will do what we can afford to do. Kristi House has always had the theory, we'll do what we must do to end the epidemic of child sexual abuse in Miami-Dade County. Thank you. Thank you all. Commercial sexual exploitation. Children were not viewed as victims that were involved in prostitution 10 years ago. So we started an outreach program called Project Gold, and we changed a law that will begin helping these children. It reminds, I have to describe this population a little bit to you. Some of you may have already heard an example of a child, but I'm going to call her Sandy. Sandy used to live in North Florida, and then she had some problems in her family, and she and her mom ended up moving to Broward County. She gets a boyfriend, an older boyfriend. Things are not great at home, so she hangs out with the older boyfriend. He offers her a version of love, maybe some fancy restaurants and nice meals, new clothes. And as the relationship goes on, it turns out that Sandy's boyfriend is really a pimp, and that what he does for a living is he lures young girls into relationships and then puts them out on the street as prostitutes. She does this first for love of him, then she does it because she can't get away from him. And she keeps running away from her mother to go back to him because she's confused and she's a child. She comes into the child welfare system and we start working with her. She's working in dance clubs and strip clubs where her pimp has a backroom business of prostitution. She works with us. She's starting to make changes. She goes back to her mom in Broward and she runs away again, back to the pimp. This time we work with the police. She's advertised on Backpage in 3 different counties. You can call for services. And you would get Sandy if you called that number. Through our network, we're able to locate her. We work with the police. We go out, we pick up Sandy again. Sandy's sent home to her mother, and Sandy runs away. All this has happened, and this child is 14 years old. So maybe now that we have a safe house, things will turn out different. Maybe things will be able to change for kids like this. But we have far to go. We have far to go this year. The journey has just begun. These places have to be safe for the children. And we're working with the state advisors to try to create the level of safety these kids need. These children need one-on-one attention. Staff levels have to be high. We've hired 2 new therapists and 6 child advocates just for this project. They need expert mental health care. To me, as we go forward, we must have the strength and courage of our convictions to not be afraid of failing. So to go back to the professor, the beginning when I was talking, we at Kristi House view each child as a precious national resource. More than that, as a national treasure. It is unacceptable that any child should be robbed of their innocence because of budgetary constraints. I tell you, folks, all the projects I have outlined for this coming year cost money. Please help us protect all our children and heal those injured by sexual abuse and sexual exploitation. And God bless each and every one of you and all of your children.